and we will be recording this session to post it later for all those who have to drop off early, who joined late or weren't able to make it at all. All right, first things first is we are having some difficulty with our PTA email addresses. So if you have tried to reach out to us in probably the last 3 weeks, you would have received an error message. So we are actively working to get this situation remedied. So in the meantime, please use our personal email addresses. I've included them here. This is for the board members. They are also on the Facebook group in one of the comments there. Again, we are super sorry for this issue, but we are trying to get it fixed. But yes, in the meantime, please use our personal email addresses. And if you have our phone numbers, call or text, those are welcome as well. BPA subcommittees. So every single meeting, we do a call for people to join subcommittees. We have BPA Dads, Run Fest, Dine Outs, Health and Wellness, and Fundraising. If you are interested in participating in any of these, please email our Vice President, Angie Bryant, at bryantal@aol.com. We are always looking for volunteers to help take ownership or participate in any of these subcommittees. We are in sort of a dire need for a Run Fest chair at the moment. If we don't get one, we will not be participating this year. So if you have an interest in, being a part of this or leading this effort, please, please, please reach out to us as soon as possible. It looks a little different than probably what it has in years past, just because of COVID protocols and things of that nature. But I do know that the team is actively, looking to do something, but we do need a leader for this effort. So again, if you're interested in participating or leading in any of these, please reach out to Angie Bryant, and her email address is right here at the bottom. Canned food drive. So all of our kiddos should get some information about this soon, but the Beta Club is hosting their annual canned food drive to support the Atlanta Community Food Bank. So we're asking that everyone please donate any canned food or non-perishable items to the school. And again, the Beta Club is leading this effort, so the classroom with the most donations will win a prize. And my understanding is the deadline is February 1st. So you have a couple weeks to get all of those goodies in. And this is a great cause being led by our Beta Club. So let's be sure to help them out. All right, some fundraising updates paved the way. I know we did a big splash on Facebook, but we wanted to make sure and call out that the BPA community is awesome, just for lack of a better word. Every year we're super surprised just by the contributions for the entire team or the entire community, and this year was no different. Our goal was $12,500, and what we actually raised was a total of $17,180. We actually communicated $16,550, I believe, at the time we closed, but we did get one last check in right before the cutoff. So that number actually did go up to the $17,180 here. So thank you to absolutely everyone who donated or thought about donating. Literally every amount was counted and nothing was too small, and we're just super excited for that. And just as a reminder, what these funds will be used for are shade structures for the courtyard play area. So if you've been in the school, we have this big courtyard in the middle where our kids play, and has like a rubberized ground out there, but there's no shade, there's no trees or anything. So we're going to put a shade structure out there, and also new library books. I don't know about yours, but my kids love checking out as many library books as they can to reach AR points. So we're always in need of more books. So that is what those funds will be used for. And we will be working with David to get those things procured soon. So more updates to come on that. We'll be sure to share pictures when everything is in. But we just wanted to say thank you again for all of you guys' hard work and donations. This is a little, oh, there you are. Dee, I'll kick it over to you for this one. Yep.
That's okay. Hi, everybody. I hope everybody is doing well. Thank you again, as Nicole said, to the community for your donations and outpouring of support for Pave the Way. It was wonderful, and we appreciate everything that everyone did. For the second half of the year, we decided that I know during the entire pandemic, our awesome, fantastic, artistic Mr. David White did tons and tons and tons of directed drawings. And we have about almost 50 of them. And so what we've decided is we are going to auction them off. And I think that this is wonderful. I've seen so many teachers say, oh my God, I want one. Are you going to give those away? And we've decided to do a silent auction with them. Mr. White has generously given them all to me. We've laminated them all. They all come with his signature. Most of them have a date on it as well. And we are going to get a copy of the book, and we will do an online silent auction. We are in the midst of getting that portal together, so more details to come. We hope to have this started off by March 1. If we can get it done sooner, we will let everyone know. But all monies raised, we are looking to go towards Teacher Appreciation Week in May and try to knock that out of the park this year for our wonderful teachers. But yes, we are auctioning off all of our directed drawings. I'm super excited about it. I think that we'll raise some great money for this. David White, thank you for your time and attention to detail that you did on all of these auction items that we're going to have. So stay tuned for more details.
Awesome.
And then one little last thing, parents, as you're listening, I love BPA. I'm there every day. Make sure you tag all of your items that are in lost and found. Make sure you just put a little label on your hats, your jackets, your bottles, your books, your everything. Lost and found already is getting thick. I'm going to go ahead and do another video. We're only 5 days in. There's a lot of things there, but make sure if you take 2 seconds, just label all of your items. Thank you.
Yes, please label those items. My kid just lost a water bottle, so thank you, Adia, for finding that for us. But yes, looking forward to the auction coming up. I have my eye on a couple of them, so more details to come, but we think this will be a great initiative. And thank you, Adia, for leading the fundraising committee and spearheading this effort. Now we will kick it over to everyone's favorite principal, Mr. White, for a couple updates.
Thanks, Nicole. Hi, guys. Thanks for being on with us tonight. I know it's a busy time, and we certainly appreciate you being here. I think those directed drawings up for auction, it cracks me up. It takes me back to the very beginning of the pandemic, almost exactly 2 years ago, when we left school in March of 2020, and I would close out the virtual learning days with a read aloud, and I would feature my cat, Dutch. And then on Fridays of those first weeks, we would do a directed drawing together. And some of those include Roz the robot from The Wild Robot, and Bright Bill, and which was the very first read aloud we ever did, and that takes me right back. And yeah, Angie said it's a little trauma inducing. I think she's exactly right, but I'm pleased to think that anybody might enjoy having those. So I think that's really cool. I'm flattered that you're including those. So that's cool. I just wanted to say that. And then before I talk a little bit about COVID, Adia also has been super helpful this year in sending out those videos to include items from the Lost and Found. We have moved the Lost and Found rack to just inside the front door. So if you're ever looking for something and you don't, and you want to look through our Lost and Found, we have a clothing rack, like a Z rack, right inside the front door of the school, so that parents can come and peruse those items if you're able and feel led to do so. That's a bit of a change in protocol as well. They're not beyond the front office, but they're in what we would call the vestibule, or the sally port, right inside the very, very front door. So just to mention that. I wanted to talk with the group a little. My main purpose for being on tonight is just to give you some of the updates of our current COVID protocol, for what happens when we get a presumed positive at school, and what happens if there's our children who are found to be close contacts with those presumed positives. Some of those protocols have changed since over the holiday break. and because of the advent of the Omicron variant. So I just wanted to give you sort of the lay of the land with our current understanding and the way that we're rolling through things right now. As a reminder, we test twice a week at school for staff, and now starting after the holiday break, children also have the opportunity to test twice a week. This week, since we weren't in school on Monday, and that's our testing day, this week is a bit of an exception. We weren't able to have testers come out today to catch us up from yesterday. So this week, we will only have 1 day of testing for staff and students. But ordinarily, we now have 2 days a week of testing for staff and for students. Another big shout out to the families who have consented to have their students tested at school. We have 450 of our 500 kids who are consented for testing. That's 90% of our students are consented for testing, and that is a phenomenal, phenomenal rate. I'm so thankful and appreciative of you for allowing us to test almost all of our kids. 90% is really unheard of, and I'm super thankful for that. So thank you for that. And that consenting to test at school really plays into some of these adjusted protocols that I'll kind of talk you through for about 5 or 6 minutes now. If you don't know our school nurse, Cheryl Maybank, she's really terrific. And she and I have a COVID huddle every morning, and we talk through our COVID tracker. We talk through and remind each other of which students are out because of positive cases or exposures. We talk through and remind each other of when those children's return to school date, when those dates are. And we circle back around to any family that we need to. I ask every day that Cheryl, our nurse, she keeps in touch with families whose kids might still be out, to make sure that they're getting support from their teacher if they need assignments for working on at home, just a variety of things. So we have that huddle every morning so that she and I stay in the know and can help connect the dots. But one question I wanted to answer is just to walk back through what happens if a kid gets a presumed positive test at school. Last Tuesday, we had 11 presumed positives at Burgess on our first day after the holiday break and after that week of virtual learning. And by far, that was the most presumed positives we've ever had. So what happens if your kiddo gets a presumed positive? We immediately remove them from the classroom setting, and we take them to what we call the care room, right? Which is an isolating a room away from other children, and we contact moms and dads.
I had a boy.
Those kids have to be picked up.
He's 4 months today.
Hey, Joya, can you go on mute, my friend, Ms. Burson? Thank you so much. We take those children out of their classroom and we call the parents and we request that they get a confirmatory PCR test on that same day. Right? We prefer that they take them right from school if possible to get a confirmatory test. Here's why that's important. If that confirmatory test happens to be negative, then the child can come right back to school. We've had a few presumed positive quick tests that ended up not being positive when the child had the more invasive PCR test away from school. So we ask for those PCR tests right away to either confirm that it's a positive case or to verify that it was a false positive so the kiddo can come back to school. If that PCR test is positive, right, if it confirms that the child is positive for COVID, then that child needs to isolate and stay out of school for a complete 5 days. That's a reduction in the number of days. We used to have to stay out 7. That is now reduced to a complete 5 days. That means a child who is no longer symptomatic can come back to school on that 6th day, but they have to be out of school a full 5 days from the time of their positive PCR confirmation. So that's the nuance, the change there is it's gone from 7 days to 5 days. They can come back as long as they're symptom free after those 5 days, and they are have to wear their mask, but we all do that anyway at school. I also had the question about what happens if your child tests positive at home or over the weekend or away from school. And the answer is all those same things, right? The only thing that doesn't happen is that they wouldn't be removed and we wouldn't call you. You would be letting us know. but the same number of days and the same protocol, whether the child tests at school or at home with you, it's the same protocol. Now here's where things get a little bit even more different because of the district's new policy called Test to Stay. Test to Stay is really sort of, I like to think of it as an adjusted quarantine procedure, right? So if your child, if there's a child in your classroom who tests positive at school and their confirmatory PCR is also positive, so we know it's a real bona fide positive case of COVID, if a child who is a close contact for that child, before the holiday break, that child who is in close contact would also have to go home and quarantine. But because of the new procedure called Test to Stay, if your child is determined to be a close contact of a positive case, if your child is part of our twice weekly testing program, they don't have to go home and quarantine. If they're part of our twice weekly testing program and they don't have any symptoms and they continue to wear their mask, they can continue to be at school, learning at school with their peers. We will test them twice every week. If they ever were to show a positive, then of course we would go through the process I just described. That happens anytime we have a positive case. But as long as there are no symptoms and they're wearing their mask and they're testing at school, they can stay. That's a big change. That's the process called Test to Stay. The good news is, as I shared earlier, 450 of our kiddos have consented for testing. So that means that the bulk of our students, as long as they're not symptomatic and as long as they're wearing their masks, which we all do, they will be allowed to stay in school and participate in our testing. Now, for students who, for those other 50 students, 50-ish students who are not consented to test at school, if they are determined to be in close contact with a verified positive case, then those children will have to go home and they will have to quarantine for 5 days. They'll have to get a PCR test on that 5th day. And that if that test is negative, then they may come back to school after that result comes back. The reason those 5 days are important for a close contact who isn't part of our testing program, the research that we've been provided tells us that it takes 3 to 5 days from initial exposure for the virus to take hold in a new case. If someone's going to get sick, they're going to get sick by that 3rd to 5th day. So we require a quarantine of 5 days and a PCR on that 5th day for anyone who's been a close contact, but who is not part of our testing program. I saw someone pop into the chat. If the child is determined to be a close contact, whether a test to stay or not, will the parents still be notified? That's a yes. The nurse and I still do have contact tracing conversations anytime we have a known positive case from school. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes very briefly. We also had questions about when a child or a staff member, for that matter, have a confirmed positive case of COVID, that child, that human can test positive for weeks and weeks and weeks, long after they are already well. So to prevent confusion or triggering those timelines again, we will not test a grown-up or a child who's been confirmed positive for several weeks. The nurse and I have a COVID tracker that tells us when the child can return to school and when they should resume testing, because we don't want to trigger a false positive after we believe and understand that the kid is no longer contagious, and to trigger that sequence of quarantining again in any way. So we're aware of that, and we have a master list of students who should not test because they have recently been positive. So we're tracking that as well for the reasons I've shared. Another question that I get frequently, and I wanted to talk a little bit through, is for students or staff who have had a known positive case, right? If a kid or a grown-up has been positive for COVID, many families have asked when they need to get a negative test. We don't require a negative test. And by we, I mean BPA and Atlanta Public Schools and probably lots of other organizations as well. Here's why. You don't need a negative test to come back to school because you could test positive for weeks and weeks and weeks. For up to 90 days, you could test positive even long after you are well and asymptomatic and fever-free and not contagious or dangerous to yourself or anyone else. So we do not require a negative test for a child or a grown-up who has in fact been positive. The only negative tests we require are for folks who were close contacts, just to verify that they did not in fact become positive for COVID-19. But a true positive case, we do not require a negative result to return to school or work. So everything I've discussed as far as when kids can come back to school, everything I've shared has a caveat, right? In every case, to return to school, even if it's the 5th day, it's important that children and adults be fever-free, right, without any fever-reducing medication, and that they have no other symptoms of COVID-19, that they're not still experiencing a headache, that they don't have a runny nose, that they're not having body aches, right? If they have any of those symptoms that are associated with COVID-19, even if it's been the full 5 days, we still want you to keep them at home because those are indications that they could still be contagious. That's super important. I've included here on this slide my direct desk number, the nurse's direct desk number, and both of our emails, just in case there are folks on the call who don't already have that information. And those are the updates I wanted to bring regarding COVID. I'm going to trust my friends on the call to feed me any questions that I may not have asked. And while you're scrolling through the chat, perhaps to feed and vocalize those questions, I wanted to mention a couple things about summer school. We're starting to get questions about summer school as well. The district has not shared final information yet about summer school, but here's what I think is probably going to be true. I do believe Burgess-Peterson will offer a summer program. Last year, we offered summer programming and we invited students based on some different data sets, right? Students that we believed would benefit from some extra time at school. I don't yet know what those criteria for identification will be, but I presume that there will be some sort of identifying data, either at Georgia Milestones or our MAP data, or I'm not quite sure what that will be, but I'm sure we will find out within the next few weeks. Summer school for Atlanta Public Schools is almost always the entire month of June, right? To give kids just a couple days after that last day of school, and then it's typically the 4 full weeks in June for our summer academic program. You probably already saw, I talked with Shamika Baptiste today about pushing out some save the dates for her Incredible Kids summer programming as well. And that timeline will mirror our summer school programming and will include basically the month of June. We won't have a summer school or iKids during the month of July. The Board of Education is still considering the calendar. The calendars were presented at last week's Board of Education meeting. I believe option B is the one that's the preferred option. The preferred option. The board had what's called their first read or their first viewing of that option last week, and I believe they will have the opportunity to vote on that option at their February board meeting. So it's still not locked in for academic calendar for next year. That's the extent of what I know or think I know about our summer programming. Nicole or others, Angie, are there questions that I didn't hit?
No, there was only the one about the parents being contacted of a close contact.
Very good. Okay. Might I share one other detail before I throw back to Nicole? Every day that we have testing at school, I always send out a remind that says, hey, testing's over for today. We tested this many kids and this many grownups, and we had this many positives. People who need to know have been or are being contacted, right? My typical update. You may notice from time to time, the number of kids who test won't always be the same. There's two reasons for that. One of those reasons is just general absenteeism, right? Not every kid who's eligible is at school on those testing days. But the second that's important right now is the kiddos who were actually positive, we won't test them again for several weeks. So even if we have 450 consented, we've had about 25 known positive cases when you look at the holiday break, the week of virtual when kids tested positive over at Maynard Jackson, and then last week at school when we had 11 positive cases. So those students won't be a part of our testing program again for several weeks till practically spring break. So that 450 is reduced by however many known positives we're still holding out of testing and however many kids are absent on that particular day. So that it won't necessarily be close to that 450 every day. Just wanted to point that out. That's all I have. Thanks for the time tonight.
Cool. Thank you, David, for all those updates. Just as a reminder, we are recording the session, so I know that was a lot of detail. We'll be sure to push this out to everyone. And then I also know that we have a lot of things we'll be pasting in the chat. So you have like those bullets just for your own back pocket. One additional thing that was added here is just a link to our virtual tour for interested BPA families or prospective BPA families. Typically, well, pre-COVID, way back when that was, we used to host tours like twice a month for families to come in and see the building. Obviously, since COVID happened, we're unable to do that. So what we did was we put together like a 9 to 10 minute video that showcases our school. David is on at the beginning, giving some intro pointers and answering a lot of frequently asked questions that we've sourced over the last couple of years. And then he comes back on at the very end to really wrap up and do the same thing. If you don't mind, please click the link. I know we're going to put it in the chat. We'll also, I think it's been in a newsletter. We'll be sure to push it again, but please share it with neighbors and friends of folks who are new to the area. It's really informative, and we find that it really just helps alleviate, some new school anxieties and answers a lot of questions at the front end. All right, just some important dates we want to call out. Obviously, there was no school yesterday, so could have got rid of that. But we do have winter break coming up, February 17th, 18th, and 21st. That one usually catches me off guard. And then we also have spring break, first week of April. Teacher Appreciation Week. Wanted to push this out sooner than later. It's where we celebrate our teachers. We give them cards or gifts or whatever the case may be. It's just a time to really acknowledge all of the work that's been going on, or all of the work that they've put in. And that's the first full week of May. And then the last day of school is Wednesday, May 26th. So just some important highlights for you to add to your Google calendars or Outlook calendars or whatever the case may be at home. Now I will kick it over to our treasurer to give some highlights for our updated PTA budget.
Hey, y'all. All right. So we have made lots of money, exceeded the goal as we talked about with Pave the Way. So a bunch of that is deposited into our account. We currently have $20,720.96 in holdings. Our main expenses has been teachers' gifts, which is down here in teacher and staff appreciation. We spent $2,125 on Amazon gift cards for our faculty and staff. We did have a dine out, but we are still waiting from Your Pie to give us the results or the final tally on what that will bring in. And that's pretty much the biggest between Pave the Way and Amazon. Excuse me, and the teacher gift, Amazon gift cards, that's pretty much the biggest changes in the budget. We did do another t-shirt order and we still have plenty of t-shirts. So if you are wanting some BPA swag, please reach out to myself or to Nicole so that we can get you some shirts and get more of our profits. That's pretty much my update.
Cool. Yeah, and as we mentioned, we'll be sure to share when we actually start spending the Pave the Way money. Usually that takes place end of the year, early summertime. And then we do have some placeholders here for additional teacher staff appreciation for like that teacher appreciation week. So this will be updated and reflected as always at our next meeting.
And I will be working on getting receipts to everyone who did contribute to Pave the Way by end of month.
Marcy.
Sweet.
Hi. Welcome to the show.
All right. So Austin definitely stole my thunder a little bit. We got plenty of BPA swag left over. So if you are interested in purchasing an adult or youth sweatshirt or an adult or youth t-shirt with our awesome new logo, please reach out to me. That is my cell phone number. Call or text is fine, or you can reach out via email or, you know, Facebook Messenger or Smoke Signal, whatever works. But we have plenty to get out to you. So we want to make sure that everyone has opportunity, you know, to wear this new BPA merch. So with that being said, that brings us to the end of our agenda here. I cannot see comments. So Angie, Aaron, are there any questions out there that we need to answer?
There is not, except for Dr. Marr is looking for a hoodie, so you should follow up with that.
Say that one more time.
Dr. Marr.
Got it. Cool.
Dr.
All right,
Mayor, I got you. I just wanted to throw that out there.
All right, just let me know. I got you. All right, well, if there's no other questions, we will go on and end today's PTA meeting. Thank you guys so much for joining, and reach out if you have any questions. Have a good night, all.